So there are two parts to it. The one part is the confidence, the self-confidence. And that self-confidence doesn't only colour the world of money in our life, it colours every part of our lives, that self-confidence.
Yeah.
And we don't feel in control enough to say, no, this is what I want, and I'm going to stand my ground. And we don't understand our own value because mainly we haven't even really thought about it.
Welcome to the Permission to Heal podcast. I am Marci Brockman. Together we will discover what brings us healing, meaning, and true joy. You only need your own permission to begin. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Permission to Heal. I am Marci Brockman, and I am thrilled that you are here today. Today's episode is a conversation with a wonderfully lovely woman from Sydney, Australia, named Virginia Baker Woolf. She is she's brilliant. She spent about 20 years or so of her life as an educator, as a foreign language Spanish educator. She is trilingual in French, Spanish, and English. And after spending so many years in the educational sphere, decided to challenge herself, and she became a coach. She has more certifications, 8 certifications as a coach from all sorts of coaching schools and institutions and federations and so on. And so what she does, what Virginia's specialty is a money mindset empowerment coach for women. And you know, I think that we need that. This is the first episode of Permission to Heal, where we're talking about financial wellness and the link between our financial health and our thought process about our financial health and money, and how connected that is to our self-worth, our self-esteem, shame recovery, self-knowledge, self-image, our deservingness, deprivation, self-worth, together with a normalization and validation of structural and societal issues that we're all dealing with patriarchal control of money versus an egalitarian control of money. And she has a very laser-focused, clear, compassionate way of explaining how our self-worth, our feeling of enoughness, our feeling of our own validity and our own agency directly translates into how we think about money. And she said something that was really, true and shocking, that we would all rather talk about death than talk about money. We would rather talk about anything else except money because it's so uncomfortable and so emotionally charged with things that we don't necessarily want to deal with. But as we all know, or as we should know, that things that involve shame and things that we're embarrassed about, things that we are uncomfortable with and that cause us trauma, really only gain power when we keep them in the dark, when we keep them hidden, when we don't talk about them. And Virginia and I both agree, as well as many other people, that many other people, that when you shine a light on these things, you take away their power. You take away the shame, you take away the embarrassment, you take away the pain, you take away all of the suffering and the struggle, and you start to see something as maybe not benign, but as a normalized challenge. And she has wonderful, clear steps and strategies that we all can take to take little steps, which would amount over time to larger steps to take control. So she offers on her website a money mindset momentum 6-module course that she's launching at a giveaway price of $75 US or 97 Australian dollars. The link is in the show notes. You can also get the link from her website, which is also in the show notes. Themoneyproject.net is the website. She has a larger course that is all encompassing and fabulous called The Money Project, which is 8 modules plus live coaching. That's a little bit more of a financial outlay, but you're also getting live coaching sessions with her weekly over the course of the course. There's 2 quizzes on her website: Unlock Your Personality quiz and Getting to Know Your Modus Operandi About Money. And I took them both, and they were very enlightening. There were things about my attitude toward money that were also reflective of my attitude towards myself, my own self-concept, and the way that I deal about my own life that I was only partially aware of. So I strongly suggest that you take those things. This was just a really much needed conversation. She's not a financial advisor. She's not telling us where to invest our money or how to play the stock market or what cryptocurrency is, but she is telling us what we really need to hear about our relationship with our money and our earning potential. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being faithful listeners. Thank you so much for all of the amazing reviews and comments that you've made on the various social media platforms and on the various podcast platforms. I am grateful for this amazing community, this Permission to Heal community. So please continue to reach out. Please continue to leave comments and leave us reviews and share podcast episodes with your friends, your family, your coworkers, with your children, with your parents, with your aunts, uncles, cousins, everyone. I think we all need to give ourselves permission to live our best lives. And it all starts with us. No one's coming to rescue us. There's going to be no knight in shining armor. It's all about our own agency and what we're willing to do for our own lives. Just to tell a little side note, I was thinking about a memory of my own from when I was little. My grandmother used to make me oatmeal with honey and milk when I was a little girl. And as she fed it to me in her kitchen, she would tell me the story of Rapunzel, the fairy tale of Rapunzel, the princess who was kept captive in the tower. And when her handsome prince was coming to rescue her, she let out her long hair out the window of the tower so that he could climb up and rescue her. And as I was having this memory, just yesterday morning, actually, I was thinking, if she had the ability and this long hair that would reach all the way to the bottom of the tower, why not use it as a rope and save herself? She could have climbed down, even cut her hair off, secure it like a rope to something inside, and climb down. I don't understand. It's that whole patriarchal damsel in distress kind of thing. But, it's 2021, almost 2022, probably 2022 when you're listening to this. And I don't think that any of us should be waiting around to be rescued. No one's coming. I'm sorry to be the person to tell you this, but the handsome prince or handsome princess or, the rich multi-billionaire with the jet isn't coming to rescue you. You have to do it yourself. You're the one that has to shine the light in all the dark corners and heal yourself from trauma and give yourself permission to go for your dreams. Give yourself permission to do the work, to love yourself, to be compassionate, to practice self-care, to do the small and large and beautiful things, to live your best life, to help you live your unabashed, fabulous, glorious, authentic, beautiful self. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all very much. Okay, good morning or good afternoon, Virginia. How are you? I'm so
But,
excited that you're here.
yeah, me too. Yes, me too, Marci. I'm very happy to be here and to work with you and to meet you.
It's very exciting. So, our Permission to Heal audience here has never, um, we've never approached the concept of wellness or health or healing from a financial standpoint before. And I think that it's about damn time we did.
I
Um,
agree.
I think that this is something that most women, including me, could use a little coaching
I agree. 100%.
on. um, so, yeah, I remember very early on in my career journey, I was 23, maybe, and I had just gotten the public relations job on the east side of Manhattan that I had coveted for quite a while. And I walked in there, and in my head, I was saying, all right, I'm not going to accept any salary below whatever the number was that I could live on. And then I walk in there, and then I find that I want the job so much, and they're all these really intimidating middle-aged men, and I accepted the first crappy offer they gave me. And at first I was like, yay, I got the job. And then I was like, ugh, and I'm doing all this work for that money. And I had no one to blame but myself.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I didn't know why I felt so crappy about it, really. I mean, I knew like financially why I felt so crappy about it, but I didn't know emotionally why I felt so crappy about it. And it wasn't until I sort of unpacked that in therapy a while later that I realized that I was not confident in my own worth and in my own value and in what I could bring to their company. And I'd sold myself short.
And Marci, you are part of the majority. I've done the same thing. And I would say that the majority of women have done the same thing. So we end up in a position of under earning.
Yeah.
So,
And then I
so
was
there are,
always resentful and I had no one to
yeah,
blame but myself.
yeah. So there are two parts to it. The one part is the confidence, the self-confidence. And that self-confidence is doesn't only color the world of money in our life, it colors every part of our lives, that self-confidence.
Yeah.
And we don't feel in control enough to say, no, no, this is what I want, and I'm going to stand my ground. And we don't understand our own value because mainly we haven't even really thought about it.
Right. Absolutely.
And I
Absolutely.
think the majority of women are under earning and they are not earning what they are worth. And I was most certainly in that position.
Yeah. And it plays to the same emotional, I don't know what the word is that I'm looking for, the same emotional metaphor about that I think is the same thing with our relationship boundaries. You know, that we're not really sure about what's okay and what's not okay in our lives within our relationships with our family, our friends, our boyfriends, our relationship partners, whoever. And because we're not clear on that, we're also not clear on the money part. I think it's
Yeah,
all the same thing.
yes, exactly. The money is not just about the money. The money is a symbol, the money is a metaphor. And when you start to work on the money, you will find that a whole load of other issues in your life get worked on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you know your worth, if you are really conscious of your worth, you are not going to put up with crappy relationships.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know, and if you're self-confident in yourself, you know that you have the resources to leave a relationship that's not making you happy, that's not acceptable, and you have the confidence to say, well, this isn't working for me, and I'm going to go and find something better that does work for me.
Mm-hmm.
So these issues of self-confidence, self-esteem, self-empowerment, they are all mirrored in what we do with money. And it's interesting because with money, the rubber meets the road. Money is, we are so deeply connected to the money stuff that once you scratch on the surface, a whole lot of more stuff becomes obvious. So if you're doing, for example, executive or life coaching, the coachee can choose not to talk about something. They can choose not to have something on the table.
Right.
And the rule of thumb in coaching is that if you ask the question 3 times in different ways and you're not getting an answer, it's time to let it go, because the coachee they carry the agenda. And if they don't want to talk about something, then the coach has to have some respect for that. Now, what happens with money is a hot mess.
Oh,
and
yeah.
so the
Oh,
stuff
a big
about,
hot mess.
yeah, so the stuff about money just falls out onto the table. We can't really even help it falling out onto the table. And once it falls out onto the table, then we're really vulnerable, and we're also very transparent. And that is when real transformation takes place, and not just with your bank balance, in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, just as you started saying, Marci, if you are being paid properly for what you're worth and you feel good about it, you are doing better in every single part of your life, because you're not resentful.
Right.
And you're happy with how things are for you, and you're happy with how you stood up for yourself.
Yeah.
And, you know, the thing is that when there's more money in the hands of women, a whole load of good things happen. Like women, so first of all, there's enormous stress.
Yes.
There's an inordinate amount of stress for women about money. And that has various components and various reasons. But when we are stressed, it has a really negative impact on our health and our well-being, mental and physical and emotional. And when a woman is in a situation that she's suffering from that much stress, it's not easy for her to be truly present as a mother.
Right.
So that means those children are missing out.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have a woman who's well-rounded and she's earning what she's worth, and she has some self-confidence, some self-esteem, and some boundaries, she makes a much better mother. Mm-hmm. And she can have so first of all is the relationship to self. So first of all, she's much happier in herself. And then after that, that ripples out to being a better mother, a better partner, and much happier in your life.
Because her cup is already full, so she can feed everyone else with the overfull. She's not an empty cup trying to fill everyone else's cup.
That is exactly right. She's not running on empty.
Right. Right. Amazing.
And that has an enormous impact on her health.
Yes.
And when I say health, I'm not just saying whether you feel tired or not. I'm saying it has an impact on your immune system. Mm-hmm. It has an impact on your blood work. So it's not just that your well-being suffering a little bit, so maybe we just need to have a day off, or we need to sleep longer. No, this is more important than that.
Well, because there's so much unsureness, there's so much uncertainty about not having enough money, or about things being short, or not being able to give your family what they need, or consistent money for rent and food and other things. When there's a deficit of any kind, I think it's felt, especially with women, it's felt everywhere.
That's right, exactly. And the name of your podcast is very interesting, Permission to Heal. Mm-hmm. And with money, we actually need to give ourselves permission to work on it. Permission in the first instance to say, you know what, this isn't great and I would like it to be better. So I'm going to give myself some permission to make it better.
Right.
Women are locked into this money thing by many things, many social constructs. So we have concerns that if we're empowered and we have money, that people won't like us. And possibly if our partner is a man, we'll have issues about, will he still love me? You know, will he still love me if I'm really successful and earning a lot of money? Will he still love me if I'm doing better than him?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, another issue is whatever the relationship was in the family, particularly with the father.
Right.
And in many families, not all, of course, but in many families, more than 50%, the man is still the head of the household. And the children pick that up. I mean, the children they just absorb it.
Mm-hmm. So
if your father was, pretty much the head of the household and he ran the money, then the little girl sees that as that's not her mother's business.
Right.
And we need to give women permission to move out of that.
Yeah, I find it surprising how many women intergenerationally, like not even like, generations ahead of me or I mean, it doesn't really matter. So many households have the husbands or the fathers or the men of the household controlling all the purse strings, even if both the husband and the wife, I mean, assuming we're talking about heterosexual couples, but even if both people in the couple are working, the man seems to take care of the money. If not,
yes,
maybe the day-to-day stuff might be in the hands of the wife, let's say, but the big picture money tends to be in the hands of the men.
Yes, and you're absolutely right. It's intergenerational. And you're absolutely right in the way you've just spoken about women's relationship to their male partner. You know, in the 1950s, women could not get a mortgage. I mean, in the 1970s, a woman couldn't get, in this country, Australia, and we're pretty forward in the world, a woman couldn't get a mortgage without a male partner.
No, I think it was 1976 or 1977 in the United States before a woman could get her own credit card.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So it was the credit card, a mortgage, a finance plan to buy a car, just very many everyday things.
Less than 50 years
women
ago.
only started to have permission to have in 1980.
Yeah.
So,
it's scary. I when I looked up those statistics, I was absolutely shocked.
Okay, so the suffragette movement seems like it was a very long time ago.
But and it was 100 years ago.
Hard. Huh?
It was only 100 years ago.
It's only 100 years ago, and 100 years is not very much. And they fought tooth and nail to get the right to vote. And then they fought tooth and nail to be allowed to attend a university.
Mm-hmm.
So we've fought tooth and nail for significant things. So that was the right to vote, the right to get the same education as a man. And then we had the sexual revolution, that women have a right to have a sexual life. They don't, good girls don't have to be virgins.
Right, and they have the right to plan their family. They don't have to be at the whim of their male counterparts' sexual prowess.
That's right.
Basically.
But I
tried to say that in a way that was
I'm talking more about women who haven't made a definite partner choice, that they haven't.
Oh, absolutely.
You might be having a few relationships before you get married. Now, once upon a time in the 1950s, if you did that, you were a slut.
Right.
These days, we accept that as being quite normal.
Right.
The same with living with your partner before marriage. In Australia, that started in the 1970s. But it was like, you couldn't tell your parents that's what you were doing.
No, absolutely, and to hide it.
But these days, the normal thing, the regular thing, is that you live with your partner before you marry them to make sure that this is going to be okay.
I did that with both my first and second husband.
I did it with my husband.
Yeah.
My daughter did it with her husband. And when she did it with her husband, nobody flapped an eyelid. Nobody.
Right.
But where I had a sister that did this in the late 70s, and she didn't tell my father. Now that's 40 years ago. That's not very many years ago.
No, not at all.
So in the present day, women would rather talk about death, sex, and drugs than money.
Yeah.
And as a society, we don't have permission to talk about money. But women, I mean, men don't have permission. Well, they talk about money with each other more than women do.
Mm-hmm.
They have a bit more permission than women. So this is actually a revolution. So we've got the right to vote, we've got the sexual revolution, we've got women's financial independence revolution. And even though we've gone through that revolution, we're still not equal about money. And we're still not in a position where we have complete power and control over our own lives.
No.
And this becomes very, very, very important in regards to financial abuse and domestic violence. And I'd say that they often go hand in hand. And this is why, as women, we need to stand up now and change things. And in that family where there's financial abuse and maybe even domestic violence, there are girl children in that family, and they're learning that this is how it is for women. Mm-hmm. And this is also intergenerational.
Yeah.
And it can take women...
Can we take a step back for 1 second? How would you define financial abuse? I never heard that as a phrase before. I think I intuitively know what you mean, but how would you define that?
That'll be where the husband holds the purse strings.
Okay.
The woman has to account for every single penny that she spends. She's not allowed to spend money on that. She's not allowed to spend money on that. He makes all the financial decisions. Okay. She has no right to have a voice. If she clocks up money on a credit card, she's going to be in trouble.
Okay.
So it's a bit like the woman is the naughty child.
Yeah. Yeah, setting it up in a very punitive way. That's not cool.
And childish. I mean, she doesn't have full power of herself or her life. Mm-hmm. And that kind of financial abuse then feeds into coercive control.
Right.
And coercive control is where the man wants to know where you are every single second of the day. And you are not allowed to do anything that he doesn't know about. And if he catches you out, you're in big trouble.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, for women to leave those sorts of situations, we need for women to have a lot more permission around money than we currently have.
Definitely true. Okay, let's take a step back a slight bit and let's talk. I launched into this very quickly, and let's get the focus back on you for a minute. Okay. I would love you to tell us who you are and how you became to be who you are as a life coach, as a financial coach, as a what's the Virginia Baker Woolf story?
The story is that I did my university work in foreign languages, and I studied at the Sorbonne, and I studied at the University of Sevilla in Spain.
Wow.
And I came home and did a double degree in Spanish. And I taught Spanish at university level for many, many, many years. I also taught English as a second language for many years. And eventually I got bored. It was like...
Right. How many times can I conjugate verbs? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I'm really good at this. Mine didn't just conjugate verbs. Mine were made to speak.
Oh, of course. College level, yeah.
Yeah, so I got bored, like I did that for more than 20 years. I got bored. And so I looked around for something else to do, and I took a job because I came from an academic background. I took a job in an education institution, a Department of Education here, in a type of corporate role. And I loathed it. I loathed the job. And when I look back now, I should have left earlier. Because that job was beneath my capacities. Mm-hmm. Like I could do that job with my eyes closed, you know, facing towards the wall, you know.
Talk
There
about
was
being
no,
bored.
so I was bored witless, but not only was I bored witless, people who were less intelligent than me were in more senior positions to me. And this is what can happen in government. So I ended up feeling like I was working for people. I was junior to people who were brainless. And there was a lot of gossip and bullying. It was a very, very toxic workplace. And so before I took that job, I was looking around for what to do. So we had a big broadsheet newspaper called the Herald. And on the weekend, the Herald was huge, right? So I had the Herald laid out on the table and I'm looking at everything. And there was an ad in the bottom, like they'd run an ad on the bottom bit of the page. And there was this thing for something called coaching. I didn't know what coaching was. Nobody knew what coaching was. So I rang up and I talked to the people and I thought, yay, I'm going to do this. So off I went to do the coaching. And I thought it was fantastic. And then I realized that I needed to do this work properly. I needed an awful lot more training than what I'd just done.
Okay.
So I looked around and I went to an International Coach Federation conference. And that was like going to a conference where you realize that you have met your tribe.
Nice.
So this was my tribe. So I started doing more training. And then I'd taken the job in the education department. And I went to learning and development and I said to them, can you loan me out to people to be a coach? Mm-hmm. So whilst I was in that boring job, I did a lot of coaching practice, you know, and I got to a point, I also got trained as a facilitator in a manager as coach program. And this was a fantastic, fabulous program that I did. And I ran that program a lot. And then some other organization asked me to come and do it for them. So I was really excited about this.
That's awesome.
Because I was on a mission. This manager as coach program was all about creating a good culture, a culture of trust and decency, rather than a culture of command and control, which is what the organization was. So I felt like there were real possibilities where organizations could improve. And they wouldn't let me do it. They told me I had to write a submission. I had to write a submission about why would I go and do that?
Oh.
So I said, well, you know what? I'm not writing a submission and I am going to do it.
Good for you.
You can't do that. I said, why can't I do it? Oh, you can't do that. You'd have to resign. I said, yeah, good. Where's the paperwork?
I'm out of here.
I'm out of here. And so then I started coaching, corporate coaching in organizations, leadership coaching. And I did that for quite a number of years as well. And then in about 2015, I got very sick, you know, in between this, I was very ill. So when you have a situation where you've been very ill, that focuses your attention.
Yeah.
It focuses your attention on what's important.
Yeah, crisis tends to open a new door for you.
Absolutely. So in around 2015, I decided that I was stumbling around in the dark about money. I had taken no responsibility for money. I had left it all up to my husband. And my husband is not the head of the household type. Mm-hmm. My husband is a really lovely, decent, good man. And he's only too happy for me to do anything I want.
Right.
But I had left everything to him because I thought money was terribly boring. But that didn't change the fact that really, did I feel it was boring because I was anxious about it? Or did I feel it was boring because it really is boring? Well, I think there's a bit of both in there.
Sure.
I decided as a coach, I decided that this was a ridiculous situation, that I should feel like I'm stumbling around in the dark. And if you approach me to talk about our finances, I go into an anxiety attack. So I decided I was going to put an end to this. So this is what I always do with anything, any topic in my life. I go and do the research on the books. Then I get the books and I read them. And then I do more research. And then I read some more. So I did this with money. And at the same time, I also got an EFT tapping money coach. So this is a wonderful woman in the UK, and Sarah Marshall, and she's moved on from this work now. But at the time, this was her full-time work, and I did a lot of work with her. And then I thought I would find if there was a money coaching course, and like as a student, and I would do that course. I found an excellent course in Australia, and I did that. The only problem with that course was that it didn't validate what I was feeling. And I could go through the steps of that course, and look, the steps were good, you know, the steps were really good, but it didn't validate where I was coming from. And I really believe that women need to be able to validate their experience before they can really do anything about it. So I did a number of online courses. There's a woman in the States by the name of Marie Forleo.
Yes, I know her.
Yeah, okay, so I signed up. I did her course. And I signed up for the one in Australia that was also online, and I did her course. And I mean, I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher for many, many, many years.
Right.
And not like teaching out the front of the room, but teaching in the middle of the circle, and facilitating large groups. So this is something that I have a high degree of skill in. So I decided that if these women could be doing this, I could be doing my own as well.
Right.
And then I decided that if I was going to do that, I needed to have some type of certification in money, because people appreciate
credibility.
People appreciate the fact that you can say that you've actually done some type of accreditation or certification. So I did a money coaching course with the Money Coaching Institute in California. Okay. And this is not a weekend course. This is a real course with practice, feedback, homework. And so I got certified in that. And then I decided I was going to write my own course. So I started. And that's how it started. And as I was doing that, and I kept talking to more and more people, I became aware that there were more and more issues. I also looked at the statistics. 61% of women would rather talk about death than money.
Right. That'll be true.
A majority of women are walking around with the bag lady taking up space in their heads rent-free. Now, I had the image of the bag lady, and I found it very disconcerting that I had this lady in my head. So I had a chat about it with somebody, and I felt really ashamed that I had this very negative image. You know what the bag lady is? She's the homeless lady with the shopping trolley.
Yes, that's how I imagined it. Yes.
So the question to ask myself was, and this is the same question that we all need to be asking ourselves all the time about lots of things. So I asked myself, is there evidence for this? So here I say, I'm going to end up as a bag lady. And then step number 2 is there any evidence for this? So is there evidence in my life that I'm going to end up homeless? No, there's no evidence of any kind. Then why do I have this bag lady in my head? So the first thing to do is to flip the belief, I'm going to end up as a bag lady. And we need to flip it to, I'm going to end up being a woman in retirement who has means and is safe and fine. Yes. We need to flip it to that. But the interesting thing was that I discovered that the majority of women have the bag lady. And we have the bag lady in our head because we stumble around in the dark about money, And we might be able to manage stumbling around in the dark now, but when we get old and we can't work anymore, what's going to happen then? Right. Because we're stumbling around in the dark, and stumbling around in the dark includes not having a plan, not having a plan for retirement. Now, I know that the young women of 30 and 40 are going to say that's years away. But the reality is the years fly by very fast.
Very fast. And I remember anything. My dad was a financial, before he retired, was an insurance salesman and a financial planner. And the one thing that he hammered into my head was the time value of money. That if you invest smaller amounts at a younger age consistently, you'll have more money at the end than if you invest large amounts of money toward the end. And
that is absolutely right. So if this is a problem, then the way to manage that is to actually have a plan for retirement. And to have a plan for retirement, you need to take some steps. Now, they don't have to be huge financial planning steps. You can start in a simple way just by doing an automatic savings transfer. And just doing that, it's really metaphorical and it's really symbolic. And it doesn't matter if it's not much money. The point is that you're thinking about this, and now you've gone ahead and you've set up a savings account, and you've set up an automatic transfer from your regular account to your savings account. And it doesn't have to be a lot of money, because the lesson that you're going to internalize is that you can take some steps to help yourself. And that's going to help you feel much better about yourself. Right. And that bag lady won't be as large in your head because you've taken a few steps to mitigate the bag lady.
And to take control over that which you had not previously controlled.
Exactly.
And that's huge.
And then the other thing we need is to have an emergency fund. We need to have 3 to 6 months of money, living money, on hand in case something happens.
See, this I've never been able to manage.
Now, you know, a lot of people will say, oh my God, Virginia, really, get realistic. I don't earn enough money for that. And to that, I would say, I understand that. And you know what? That is okay. You start with where you are with what you've got. But if you start something with a $10 contribution, that will have an enormous impact on your money well-being.
Over time.
The other thing that becomes important, so that we don't feel like we're stumbling around in the dark, is to have a budget. Now, the budget is a very dirty word.
Oh,
and
nobody say the word budget and the hair on the back of my neck stands up.
That's right. And you are not alone. That is the majority of women. Because in the main, we feel like that budget is going to be deprivational. We're going to be deprived of what we want. And this is another belief that we can flip. So instead of looking at it as deprivation, we can look at it as being now able to make choices. Because when you list out that money and you see what you're spending it on and you become conscious of what you're spending it on, you can become conscious about whether you want to keep spending that money, or maybe you even want to spend more on that particular line item. So, for example, before COVID, I liked to work in a cafe. And I felt sort of closed in at home. You know, it's like I needed to get out. So I'd go sit in a cafe. Now, because I sat in the cafe and I took up a seat, you know, that's a seat that they need to bring in income.
Right.
So I would always I'd get a pot of tea, and then I'd have some lunch, and then I might even have another pot of tea. Now, if you compare the cost of that to what it would cost me to rent office space, well, I'm paying much less going to the cafe than I am if I have space I'm paying for.
Right.
But if I spend $30 every day for 4 days a week,
It's
that's
$120 a week.
$120. That becomes $500 a month.
Right.
Now, do I choose to keep spending that $500 a month? Or would I prefer to put at least half of that towards a savings account or towards a financial goal that I've got, like going on a holiday?
Right.
And when you can see what you're doing and you become conscious of it, you can make new choices. And the fact that we're stumbling around in the dark and we feel quite anxious about all of this means that we don't want to be conscious of it. That's why we're stumbling around in the dark, because we don't feel safe. So the way out of a lot of this is, look, small steps. One of the best ways out is to accept the fact that you're not alone and you're not peculiar. You're not odd.
No.
You are part of the majority. But we don't talk to each other about it because money is taboo. Now, we talk to each other about all sorts of other things. Women talking with women.
Yeah.
We talk about a heap of things, you know, but money is still taboo. And, you know, when you are ashamed about something, when you're carrying shame about something and you don't speak about it, the shame gets to grow. Shame can't survive being spoken about.
Right.
It can't survive. So if you say to me, yeah, all very well, Virginia, I don't feel comfortable to speak to my friends or my circle or whatever about money, or my family. I mean, we don't even talk to our families about money. So
it's usually the subject that's very taboo. You know, we don't talk to each other about how much money we spend on houses, you know, or how much money we make, what our salaries are. We don't talk about anything.
No, we don't talk about anything.
It's usually like even worse to talk about than how you voted, like your political belief, you know?
Yeah,
like,
or your religious beliefs.
Right. Right. Don't talk about politics or money, but everything else is all right. You know,
yeah. So we need to start talking about it so that we can support each other, because we all feel the same. So it's like, you know, she looks okay. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes there.
No.
And if people,
I mean, I look the same way I've always looked, but since the pandemic started, my husband's been mostly out of work and we're managing on my income, which so far is fine, but the credit card debt is building up and you can't tell that. I look exactly the same from the outside, but in the inside, half the nights of my life, I'm going to bed worried about how those bills are getting paid, you know?
Well, Marci, you are not alone. The majority of women are going to bed at night not knowing how that they're going to pay the bills. And in Australia, 63% of women have a problem at the end of the month.
Yeah.
63%. So that's 63% of women who have a problem, but we don't talk to each other. So when people say, I can't talk about it, I say, good. Why don't you start talking about it by going to the bank? The banks offer, you know, they offer courtesy consultation.
Sure.
About money and planning. Give yourself the exercise of going to the bank. Just front up and have a chat. Make sure you get a woman to talk to, not a man.
Yeah.
Okay. Because when we're talking to a woman about our stuff and we know that she also has some stuff, the conversation is going to be a whole lot more open and transparent, and nobody's going to try to mansplain us.
Yes.
Right?
How do I hate that? Yes.
Yeah. And the other thing, as well as the banks, you know, financial planners, you know, they all offer a free consultation to have a chat. And once again, choose a woman. And
I have a financial planner who's a man, and I adore him. I trust him.
So that's good.
He's
wonderful.
I'm not saying, no. I'm not. I know you're not disparaging men, but I'm saying that consulting with somebody whose job it is to help people understand finance, to understand investing, to discover, I mean, he gave me a whole quiz about what my risk tolerance was, you know, like how much time I had to save, what my priorities were, you know, what my fear level was about, let's say, losing my principal or whatever. And I just found the whole process really, really comforting. Demystified a whole lot of stuff for me, and I felt like I was in control.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when you're in that position, you are no longer so anxious going to bed at night about money.
Yeah.
Look, there are a whole load of good men out there who do good work. But when you go into the bank and you don't know who these people are.
Right. Yes, I absolutely think another woman would be much more compassionate and do that identification thing that you were talking about before, that women didn't feel seen. You know, I think that emotional connection of being seen and understood, like, implicitly by another woman who's likely in a similar situation, it's invaluable. Yeah.
That's right. And then in regards to financial planners, it's best to choose, even to talk to, it's best to choose a planner who you pay as a fee for service rather than a planner who's earning money off what you've invested as a sidekick, you know, because that's how a lot of them earn their money. You don't want that, because a lot of the decisions are made on the basis of what will give them the biggest sidekick.
Yeah.
Not what's going to be necessarily the best for you.
Right. You got to make sure you know where their motives are.
Yes, yes. And fee for service is generally a better idea. So we can shift out of this, but it's another revolution. It's another revolution for women to get on top of.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the problems that we currently face as women would be much better handled if we dealt with the money.
I agree.
And I'm not suggesting that anybody become an investor overnight. I'm not saying that. I'm saying, in the first instance, get clear, get compassionate, feel safe, make a plan.
Now, is this all kinds of stuff that you talk about in your courses? I know you've got a couple of courses and a brand new one called Money Mindset Momentum.
Money Mindset Momentum is, and look, I'm biased, of course, but I think it's an excellent course.
I'm sure it is, Virginia.
We go through the money story. So we get a handle on getting clear about the money beliefs, patterns, paradigms that we're living with money. And we look at our family background, particularly our mother, father, and grandparents, to see how they were like, what were they like with money? What did money mean to them? Then we see which of those patterns we've also taken on. And then we flip our beliefs. Like, we ask ourselves questions like, is there evidence for thinking this? So if there's no evidence for thinking that belief, then can we flip that belief? And then we write a new story. Mm-hmm. We do the Money Archetype. There's a money quiz on my website, and we do the Money Archetype, which is very, very simple, but very accurate. And it will tell you what your personality with money is like. So
I took your money quiz a couple of hours ago.
Did you?
And I don't know how to interpret the results.
Really?
I got active twice as an answer and passive for 6 things.
Okay, so what were you active for twice?
Innocent and martyr.
Okay, that's okay. So again, with the quiz, the idea is to learn about ourselves and learn where we are. The idea is not to beat ourselves up. Now, I would go so far as to say a majority of women have the innocent. I have some of the innocent. And the innocent is the one who wants to keep her head stuck in the sand. Mm-hmm. And she wants to remain in the dark because it's not safe. And the innocent is a bit childlike. So you can have a woman who's unbelievably competent and capable, earning in excess of $200,000 a year, and she could be an innocent.
Mm-hmm.
So that tells her that even though she has achieved a whole lot of success, she's still not clear. So there's still work to do. And the martyr, look, a lot of women have martyr because of the positions that we take on as caregivers.
Yeah.
I
spent most of my life as a people pleaser, and I know that I reap a whole lot of meaning and a whole lot of my own value from taking care of other people.
Okay, and you and a lot of other women, Marci.
Yes.
But what happens, of course, with that is that inside there can be some resentment and martyrish feelings. And the idea with the money archetypes is to discover yours, and you can have more than one that's active. Mm-hmm. And then if you go through the other archetypes, the idea is, where would you like to be? So with each archetype, there are strategies for moving forward to progressing to a more positive archetype. And it's an eye-opener. It's very accurate, even though it's very simple.
Yeah, it's very thorough too. You talk about a lot of things in the results.
Yeah.
I'm going to link this quiz and all of Virginia's courses and so on. I'm going to list in the show notes. But you really should, if nothing else, take this personality quiz and read through the results, because it'll tell you a ton of stuff about yourself.
There's another quiz on the website, which is your modus operandi about money.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah, and that's a fun quiz. That's a fun quiz, and it tells you how you normally operate, what your modus operandi is with money, and it's a fun quiz. I think it's a good quiz. I think that the money archetypes tells us more, but I think the modus operandi also feeds into that. It also feeds in. And then in Money, Mindset, Momentum, we do a module on blocks, how to overcome blocks, how you can use various modalities about blocks. We do a module on practicalities. There are 9 practicalities that I go through. And I am not a financial coach. I'm not a financial planner. So I can't give any kind of planning advice because I'm not licensed to do that, but I can coach on basic issues. And so the 9 practicalities, like one of them is set up a savings account, an automatic savings account. So I go through 9 things that most of which women are involved with. Then there's a module on the 3-step circuit breaker, because we suffer from a great deal of anxiety. And the best way to manage that is to say, this makes me bloody uncomfortable. And how can I manage that? Mm-hmm. You can manage that with your breath, with meditation, with panoramic vision. So I go through three techniques, how you can soothe yourself. And they're not difficult, and they're not complicated, and they don't take a lot of time, and they don't cost any money. And then in module 6, we wrap everything up and have a plan to go forward. Now, in the 8-week course, that's a course that does go through all of the things that we've been talking about. What the hot mess is. How did we end up in this hot mess?
This was a money project.
Validating ourselves and each other for where we are and making it public. Because what that does is it says to the woman, gee, you know what? I'm not odd. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm part of a tribe. We're all affected by this in the same way.
Right.
So when people get validated for uncomfortable, vulnerable, shameful feelings, and they realize that a whole load of other people have these same feelings, they can start to talk about it.
And I think they feel less shame about it. You know, like you said before, shame can't exist when you shine a light on it. So let's shine some light on it.
That is exactly right. So we shine a big light on it so that the woman can let go of the shame. Mm-hmm. But we also go into other things like 3 syndromes: the bag lady syndrome, Prince Charming syndrome, imposter syndrome. You can have all sorts of women suffering from imposter syndrome where they feel like they're frauds in the work they're doing. And of course, this ties into the income, and this is why women will remain in positions where they're under earning. Mm-hmm. We talk about enoughness. Enoughness is a really, really big issue because in Western society, and this goes for the men as well, this is not just women. In Western society, we wake up in the morning and we say, oh, gee, I didn't get enough sleep. Or, oh, gee, I don't have enough time for that meeting today. Mm-hmm. Oh, gee, I didn't have time to buy the biscuits that I like. We constantly tell ourselves that we don't have enough. And this is another thing we could, have a look at. Because if it's not enoughness, we'll feel this with our money as well, that there's not enough. And the stumbling around in the dark is often about there's not enough. And if there's not enough, then the conversation is, what can we do so that there is enough, so that you don't have to carry this anxiety about not enoughness with your money? Yeah. The Prince Charming syndrome is still alive and well. We're waiting for a handsome guy to turn up with a carriage full of cash. And
I would like to interrupt right here with this particular sentiment and tell all of our listeners right now that you have my permission, and I would like you to give yourselves your own permission to be your own rescuer. Be your own handsome prince. Don't wait for someone else, because guess what? No one's coming. You have to do it yourself.
That's right. Prince Charming is not coming. He's never coming.
Right. So, even if you're lucky enough to have some hot guy sweep you off your feet, he's still not going to rescue you in the way that you need to be rescued. Only you can do that. Well, you don't want
to be rescued, because when you get rescued like that, you give up power.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
You give up self-agency. This is not a good thing. It's not going to end well.
No.
And then we talk about things like overspending, under-earning. So there's a whole lot more stuff about your self-concept, your self-esteem, your self-care. Mm-hmm.
I tend to overspend when it comes to my own health care or my own self-care or my own mental health care. Like, I feel like I want to try all these new things, and maybe this thing will help me feel better about X, Y, and Z. And so I sign up for all this stuff that I may do, I may like, I may finish, I might not finish, but there's too much. I'm doing too much of it, and I don't think what I'm getting from it emotionally is worth the amount of stress financially.
Okay.
So that's just me. I just got to tailor it back.
Yeah, okay. But I would suggest, Marci, that you have a list. I mean, I should put this list together. I have a list like this. You need a list of 100 things you can do to take care of yourself that don't cost any money.
Yeah.
Because there are lots of things we can do. And overspending on self-care or mental health or those sorts of things, it's a symptom that there's something that's bothering you. Mm-hmm. And so if you can get clear on what's bothering you, you'll be more likely to get clear on how you employ self-care techniques. And I would go so far as to say that there are a great many women who feel empty. There's a lot of emptiness, Mm-hmm. And I'm not suggesting that that's you, but there can be a lot of emptiness. And so we try to fill the emptiness. And often people, not just women, I mean, some men do this too, but we feel empty. So we go on a shopping spree.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of joy from our shopping spree. until it gets to the end of the month and it's on a credit card.
Right.
So the real question there is, what are you longing for? Is it really a new dress? What really is it that you're longing for? Because I bet you my bottom dollar that it's not the new dress.
No.
I mean, I think people are longing for love and acceptance and support, compassion, purpose in their life, purpose and passion. You know, if you have a woman who's, for example, very talented and she's doing some good work, but that's not really the work she wants to be doing. And she doesn't have real purpose. She doesn't feel, she's not really involved. She's not really caught up in that work.
Right.
Then she's going to feel empty. Or if you have a woman whose main relationship is not satisfying her, she's going to feel empty. But we don't want to feel empty. Feeling empty is very uncomfortable. Yes. And saying to ourselves, why am I empty? That's also very uncomfortable because we might have to deal with something that's not pleasant. It's much easier to go out and have a shopping binge. Yeah. Much easier.
Yeah, and I grew up seeing my mother do that. She lived a very empty life and, you know, had a sort of catastrophic life in a lot of respects. And she would go shopping and buy things with money that she didn't have, but she'd also buy things that she didn't need. And then they would sit in shopping bags. She wouldn't even open the bags. She wouldn't even unpack the bags most of the time. She just liked the rush of buying the thing. You know, it made
That's
her,
right.
for the moment, feel better.
That's right. And she's part of a tribe.
Yeah.
You know? So in the Money Project, the big course, there's also weekly live coaching with me. So you're off doing the 4 main processes of money coaching, but you get to come every week and discuss what you found or what's happening for you, or how do you get some support here. So the 8-week course has a lot more in it. Mm-hmm. And that's reflected in the price. The Money Mindset Momentum is priced at $75 US, 97 Australian dollars, so that no woman is locked out on the basis of price.
Because it's very reasonable for what you get.
It's a very good value program for what you get, and we all need to do this. And in everything I say, I include myself. Absolutely. And
it's part of the connection. It's part of being seen.
Yes. And for me, it was the stumbling in the dark that eventually I got tired of, because it's very uncomfortable. And, you know, you have to weigh up how uncomfortable do you want to feel? Do you want to feel uncomfortable about knowing nothing? Or do you want to feel uncomfortable about knowing something and diagnosing the problem and doing something about it? Because if the reason for not knowing and remaining in the dark is that you're so frightened that there won't be enough, that's a diagnosis. Mm-hmm. There's a diagnosis. There's not enough income here. Okay, what can we do with that? Okay, right. So is this woman under earning? Maybe yes, maybe no. If it's yes, what can she do about that? So she needs to go and ask for more money. How would she do that? She needs to become very clear on what she's achieved in the organisation in the last 12 months. And she needs to be very clear about the skills and talents that she brings to the position. And then she needs to, and then very importantly, she needs to practice that conversation half a dozen times.
At least, yes.
At least.
And be able to tell her superior in the company what she's already doing that is deserving of more money. I remember my dad telling me years ago that he had a secretary who didn't do all that much. He felt that she wasn't working hard enough, and yet she came into his office and asked for more money and said that she would only do a better job if he gave her more money. So he fired her.
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, it was a bad way of doing it. And so he said that the better way of doing it is to do the job to do a better job and then say, look, I'm already doing what somebody in the next step is doing, so I deserve more money. I mean,
that's right.
Yeah.
And the achievements of the past 12 months.
Exactly.
And then maybe this is a mum at home with little kids. Mm-hmm. There's not enough income. She's not working. I mean, women can end up in a terrible bind about children and work. You know, people think that these days we can send children to childcare, so on and so forth. Many women don't want to send their kids to childcare.
Even if you do, it's like it costs another mortgage payment. It's a very expensive proposition.
That's right. It's expensive. And so is it really worth the mother feeling torn between the job and the children when the childcare is so expensive? And personally, you know, I'm a very competent woman. Nobody's ever tried to keep me barefoot and pregnant in the kitchen, but I wanted to be with my children.
Yeah.
And I think it's an extremely valid choice if you do want to be with your children. So
I did the same thing. I mean, I've been a teacher for 27 years, but when my children were very tiny, we managed on one income, which was very hard, but I felt like being home for them for the first couple of years at least was what I wanted to do. You know, I felt compelled as a mom to make that choice for my own family. But on the side, I was like selling cosmetics. I tried selling cookware, you know, all those like home selling kind of things where I could do the outside of the house part of the job when my husband was home. You know, I never one to.
And Marci, that's exactly where I'm going, to the side hustle.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the side hustle. Yeah, it's very important. My whole life's been a side hustle.
That's what you did.
Right.
It's what I did. You know, like I took casual teaching. Like I could go and teach at at an Institute of Language from the university. I could go and teach 2 nights a week.
Right.
You know.
And it was just a stopgap. It just was a way to make the ends meet closer together, to pay for my son's karate class when I couldn't have otherwise afforded it, or something like that. Yeah,
exactly. So what we need mums in that position to be able to do is a side hustle. And doing a side hustle is about knowing your worth, your value, your skills and your talents. And what is it that you do? What is your genius zone? What is it that you do that somebody else might like to learn how to do? Mm-hmm. And then teach it and charge for it. And you can do some really creative things. You can be the expert souffle maker. I mean, if cooking's your thing, there are whole loads of things that you can do with that. If you're into vintage clothing, there's a whole load of stuff you can do with that, where you go to all of the, we have St. Vincent de Paul and the various op shops. You go to all of them, you do really good searches, you bring the stuff home, you sell it online.
On places like Poshmark and so on. Yeah.
There are lots of things. There are things that we can do. I mean, if you've been a teacher and you can do some part-time teaching at night. I mean, I also, when mine were little, I did a morning's teaching at the university on a Saturday, and I got paid as a full university lecturer, which was a lot of money for a mum to be earning on Saturday.
Nice. There's a company called Teachers Pay Teachers, where I take the assignments, projects, unit plans, all sorts of things that I design on my own for my own ingenuity and creativity from my high school classes, and I repackage them and sell them online to other teachers. And,
that's great.
And it's really very little extra work for stuff that I own the intellectual property of, and then I can turn around and sell to other teachers for them to save time in their own lives. And I've made consistently inconsistent money every month for close to 10 years that way.
Well, that's fabulous. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Exactly.
Yeah.
finding something that you do well. You know that these days there's a thing called PLR, privately licensed resources.
Mm-hmm.
And there are lots of companies doing this where you can, where a coach, for example, can buy content. So somebody had a great idea to do that. I mean, there's a business, you know, on Podmatch. There's a business out there, all online,
Right.
about matching podcasters.
Exactly.
And, you
Companies
know,
like Fiverr, where you can sign up as a freelancer and people will pay you a certain dollar amount to do a thing for them, whatever that
that's right.
is. Make appointments, to do graphic
Yeah,
design, whatever.
absolutely. Whatever you do, there's somebody who's interested to be able to access your genius zone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I had a I had a virtual assistant. She's in India, and I'm going to keep working with her.
How
Now
did that
she
work?
wasn't
I've been curious about that. That's you. What does she do for you?
okay. So on my website, my courses are in a portal that's managed by a platform called LearnDash,
Okay.
and LearnDash is seen as being the best. Now you can have all your course material, and then you have to figure out how you're going to get it online. So you need a platform.
Okay.
Okay, but for somebody like me, to load all of that course up into the platform, I have to learn how to manage this platform.
Okay. So
Now
you
that might be,
hired her to manage the
yeah,
platform for
that
you.
might be a complete waste of my time and a lot of frustration.
Right.
So I thought I'm going to find a LearnDash consultant who can do this for me.
Brilliant.
So I did, you know, I posted a job on, you know, like Fiverr, Hubstaff, Upwork. I posted my job and I just waited to see what came in. And there weren't many that came in, which told me that this was a very specialized skill. And I found a young woman in India who was charging me $30. Now, for those who do know about virtual assistants, you can find a virtual assistant to do jobs for you for as little as $3 American an hour. And it
Wow.
goes from $3 American up. And there are a lot of people people in the Philippines and India and Pakistan, and they're earning 10 to 12 US dollars an hour. And then the next jump is the 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and then the next jump is the 30s. So she told me she was charging $30 an hour, and she was not going to be negotiated with. She was very firm on that.
Good for her.
Now, $30 American is for me like $38 Australian. And the virtual assistant I'd had before was $10 US, so like $13 Australian. So this was a big jump for me. And I toyed with it and I thought, well, let's just give it a go and see if she's worth the $30, the $30 US.
Right.
So I did that. Well, she's turned out to be wonderful.
Wonderful.
And she's very honest. I don't even question her, like she bills me for hours and they get paid automatically in Upwork.
Mm-hmm.
And I questioned her a little bit the first time. What did you do in this time, and what did you manage to do in that time? And then over time I realized that she was being completely honest. She would do anything I wanted. If I asked for something to be done 3 times because I didn't like it, not that I didn't like what she did, I didn't like the result of what I told her to do.
Right.
Well, that's not her fault. So she was patient. I mean, this girl was wonderful. So she uploaded the Money Mindset Momentum for me, and I will be writing more courses, and I'll go back to her to you know, again, she was fabulous.
Wonderful.
And for the money spent, in comparison to my frustration and time, it's money well spent.
Sure.
And there are so many women out there who could be, you know, you said graphic design. Graphic design is another one.
Yeah.
You know, doing I also have a young woman working for me, Eva, who does a lot of my socials. She does a great job. Is it cheap? No, it's not cheap, but
well, it's time intensive, it's labor intensive. Yeah.
yes, it's time and labor intensive, and it can be quite frustrating. and she's a whiz at it.
That's great.
So, and she's a mum. She's exactly who we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
She's a mum in her 30s with 2 children. And in COVID, they've been at home.
Yeah. And she can do this from home. Yeah.
Yeah. Every now and again, she'll send me an email saying, Virginia, one of my kids has been sick. I haven't been so good myself. I'll get this done by such and such a time. I never fuss, because if people are not well or their kid's not well, what can they do?
Right.
But she's earning good money, and she's set herself up as a digital marketing agency or professional consultant, and she has really good ideas. She puts things together really well, and she's a mum at home, and I don't know how many clients she's got, but she's doing quite nicely, thank you, because she does a great job.
That's great.
And I don't take up her time on, for example, on Zoom, or we, if we needed to talk, we would, but we do everything by email.
Mm-hmm.
And she can do the work at home, and she can create her own timetable, which means that she might be doing this work at 8 o'clock at night for an hour or 2 when the kids are finally in bed.
Right.
So she can schedule it the way she likes, that's flexible with children. And so that's what to the ones, so again, stumbling around in the dark, we're worried that there's not enough. Why is there not enough? The diagnosis is there's not enough income. And then the question is, what can we do about that? What can we do about that? We don't want anything to be overwhelming. We don't want to be taken away from our children. Fine. What can you do within those boundaries?
Yeah, there's a lot of creative things to think about when you start seeing that you're not as boxed in as you thought you were.
That's right. And, I said in the Money Mindset Momentum, there are nine practicalities I deal with. One of the practicalities is, what is your time worth? What should you be charging for your time? Because a lot of freelancers, let's say that somebody's a freelance coach and they're charging $150 an hour, and they think that's a pretty good rate. Well, my question is, have they taken into account, well, first of all, they need to add up the number of hours that they want to work, and they have to know how much income they want to generate per month. So then they need to figure out how many hours of work per week will that be. Then we need to divide the desired income by the desired number of hours to see what that is. Mm-hmm. And it won't be $150. It'll be more. And then after we've done that, we then need to look at essential costs. And essential costs will be your domain name, your website maintenance, your insurances, your professional development. It will include a whole load of other things, your tax.
Yeah.
Right? And when you start adding all of those things in, and then you go back and you do the sum again, I think I found that depending on, and there's an admin charge, right? You've got to do the admin work. And I found that really the person who wanted to earn $150 per hour, $15,000 a month, they needed to charge between $234 and $284 an hour.
Wow.
That is a big jump from $150.
Yeah.
And the side hustlers need to become very aware that this income, the tax man would consider this to be income. Mm-hmm. And so they need to have some systems in place, and they need to predict their tax rate. So if they know what their tax rate is, a certain income per year gets taxed at this percentage, they need to be charging every client for that taxation.
Exactly. Or it's going to come out of their end.
That's right. And they can be so excited. A mumpreneur can be so excited going from nothing to $150 an hour. But then she realizes that she's got all these other costs, and really she's only earning $100 an hour. And that's not going to add up to the 15,000.
No.
And working on the calculation of 150 per hour by 64 hours a month, the income was 9,600, not 15,000.
Mm-hmm.
So this is in the money mindset momentum. And this is really important for people who start doing side hustles.
It's an interesting way to think about it. I don't think that I thought about it that way before. I was just thinking, right, I was just thinking, oh, well, that would be a nice hourly wage for that amount of work. But if I have all those other costs in getting that job and in maintaining it, then my original dollar figure is not enough.
That's right. That is right. And I would nearly guarantee that a lot of side hustlers go through this and then they realize in 3, 4, 5, 6 months, the sums aren't working out here.
Right.
We need to do something different.
Just a bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very good advice, Virginia. Okay. So I like to end the interviews. Well, we'll end the interview the way I normally begin the interview, with the 6 quick questions. And then, are you up for that?
Sure.
Okay. So what 6 words would you use to describe yourself?
Quirky, creative, persistent, insightful, resourceful,
Lovely.
Intelligent.
Excellent. I might choose the same words about myself, actually. Maybe. Number 2, what is your favorite way to spend a day?
My favorite way to spend a day. Well, I'm an artist, so a favorite way to spend time is to paint. And then my favorite way at the moment to spend a day is doing this work.
Yeah.
Because there's real mission and purpose in it.
Mm-hmm.
And another favorite way is just to go out for lunch with some friends.
Sounds great.
Mm-hmm.
I'm an artist too, so I know what you mean about painting. It's
Did you paint what's behind you?
I did the diptych that I split from side to side here, and this neurographic piece that I did in the middle. Yeah. I'm mostly abstract, some landscapes, stuff like that. I don't know.
I'm all abstract.
It brings me such zen and such peace and such meditative mindfulness and flow and so on.
I agree with you 100%. There's a flow in painting that I don't get anywhere else.
Yeah,
because
nothing.
whenever I'm doing that painting, nothing else exists.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So it's very mindful.
Absolutely.
And it's a very good break for your brain.
Yeah, I think that I've done a very significant percentage of my own mental health healing just through painting. That I'm not even consciously trying to think about those things, but it teaches me all sorts of stuff. Like the most basic thing that I've learned from painting is patience. You rush a painting, you wind up with mud. Just you could ruin the whole thing. You got to wait and let it speak to you and see how it comes out,
That's exactly right. I'm the same. And somebody said to me the other day, I was in a painting class and I was doing dots. So I get a like a bamboo skewer, wooden one.
Yeah.
Because it's the right size at the end. I put it in a little bit of paint and then I go over here and I do dots. So somebody stood next to me the other day and said, "Oh my God, what patience." And I said, I'm not patient in any other part of my life.
Right.
But with the art, I am unbelievably patient.
Yeah, because you have this vision
of
what you think you want it to look like. Or even if you don't have a vision, sometimes I have no idea what I'm going to do. I just have a feeling. Like I feel like fuchsia today. I don't know. And so that's what I start with. But you never know where that's going to go. But I'm patient enough to listen to the painting as it talks to me. What does it want?
Me too. That's it. Me too. Absolutely. So I have one idea and I do that. So it'll be one idea and one color and I'll do that. And then I'll say, and now what?
Right.
And then after I've done the next bit, I say, and now what? It's a lot of fun. It's,
yeah. And if it doesn't come out the way you like, so what?
Doesn't matter. Paint over it and start again.
Exactly. I mean, that was a huge lesson for me. You know, you just paint over it, start over again. Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Who's watching? Nobody.
Exactly. Ah, fabulous. Okay. What is your favorite childhood memory?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, a favourite childhood memory was my father and I winning the father-daughter relay. So, this was a swimming pool. It was a long swimming pool, 55 yards. Anyway, it was a long swimming pool. So what happened was that the fathers would swim first, and they had to do a whole lap. And then when the father touched down there, the daughter would dive in and she would then do her lap. Now, I was only about 12 or 11, right? All the other girls were big girls. But my father was a champion swimmer.
Aha! You had a ringer.
Yeah. So he did his lap. And when he was at the end of the pool, the other fathers were back in the middle of the pool. And the funniest thing was my father started to lose his swimming costume.
Uh-oh.
So he sort of stopped to pull it up. And my mother was on the sideline and she said, forget your trousers, swim.
Nice.
And so then I dived in to do my bit and we won. Now the girls were not far behind me, so they caught up. But my father had given me such a lead.
Head start, yeah.
Such a head start. And I knew that was what would happen.
Nice.
So I felt quite confident, even though I was little. I felt confident that we would win because of the lead. And
that's awesome.
It was a very sweet moment,
That's very cool. I like that. Very visual. Let's try the next one. What is your favorite meal?
My favorite meal is, here comes my husband's just over there. Come say hello to Marci. One of my favorite dinners is my husband's roast chicken.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, we have Virginia's husband here. How are you this morning?
My wife.
Yes.
No, he's silly.
You're going to confuse me.
That's easy. Where are you?
I'm in New York.
Oh, so is our son.
Oh, cool.
He's there for 2 weeks.
Where in New York? In New York City?
Yeah, in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Nice.
He doesn't move outside Manhattan unless he's going, where you have the nice beach houses.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I'm just in the suburbs.
Okay, that means piss off.
That means you can go now. So Gordon makes the best roast chicken dinner.
For Shabbos.
For Friday night. In the world. He makes the best roast vegetables in the world. Nobody.
Wow.
Exactly what he does. I can follow all of exactly the same steps, but it doesn't
come out the same.
Doesn't come out the same.
He puts love in it, Gordon. Puts love in it.
And the other one is we, in Australia, we have the best Asian food.
That would make sense because of your proximity to Asia. Yeah.
That's right. It makes sense. We have the absolute best. So some delicious, spicy Asian food is my favorite thing after the roast chicken dinner.
Nice. Sounds heavenly. Now I'm getting hungry. Okay, number 5. What one piece of advice would you like to give your younger self?
I would say to her that you are a whole lot more than you realize. Stand tall. You are a lot more than you think you are.
Brilliant. Do you think you would have listened to yourself if you...
Probably not.
Yeah.
I have a lot of trauma to deal with. So, when I was studying and going into paid employment, I had a whole load of other issues. So I did the best that I could, with studies. I mean, I did well, but I would have done better and made better choices if I had not been dealing with a whole load of trauma.
I think that's a lot of our stories. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our younger lives are fraught with challenges and difficulties that we could all have done without.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that impairs our ability to be our best selves, to focus
That's right.
on the things that we want to focus on because we're so busy with all that other stuff. Yeah. Yeah. That's life, though.
And, the best thing for me was finding Gordon because he's so calm and, he's just so good. At our daughter's wedding, she stood up and said her father was the most compassionate man she knew.
Beautiful. How long have you been married?
We've been married.
3 lifetimes.
Yeah, 3 lifetimes. We have been together since 1983.
Wow, that's a long time. I wasn't even out of high school yet.
Yeah, that's a long time.
That's a long time. Yeah, I was with my first husband for about 12 years, and then I was single for 10, and now I'm with my current husband for our 5th anniversary will be January. But we've known each other since 1987, so it was a long time. Long time. But good. Okay, last question. What is one thing you would most like to change about the world? Not a tiny question.
It's a big question, isn't it?
It is.
One thing I would like to change about the world, that we live in peace and harmony and we don't have wars.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That we accept each other and accept the fact that there are going to be differences and we don't need to have wars. And that what goes hand in hand with that is that a lot of wars are about authoritarian regimes. So, we need to have, from where I stand, we need liberal democracy in every country. And if we had good functioning liberal democracies, we would not need to have wars.
Right. And we would get rid of all of those people who feel like they have to control everyone else's every single move.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, like the Chinese. I mean, I'm not disparaging Chinese people, but the reality is for us here in Australia, China is our neighbour, and they have a population of billions of people.
Right.
And Xi Jinping lately, in the last 12 months, has been a lot more authoritarian and unaccepting. I mean, look at the stuff that's gone on in Hong Kong. And I don't think it takes much to realise that China is out to change Hong Kong, and they're out to get Taiwan back as Chinese territory. So if they weren't so, I don't know, greedy or rapacious, or, they have to have their, they have to control these other 2 territories. And, we saw last year all of the demonstrations in Hong Kong and quite a lot of violence against the citizens. I mean, look in Spain. I mean, in Spain, not now, but a few years ago, and I'm not up to date with where it is now, but the whole business that took place in Barcelona of the police coming in and bashing up protesters.
Yeah.
I mean, what kind of country does that?
Yeah. Yeah. My son's very good friend, in the summer of 2020 in the United States, when the whole Black Lives Matter thing was starting to really come to a head during the lockdown part of COVID, she happened to be in Florida protesting on her knees, no weapons, with a whole bunch of other people. and the police department, trying to quell this protest, but it was a peaceful protest, shot like water cannons or whatever you want to call them at her and at all of them. And she lost all of her front teeth or some of her front teeth and gashed open her face, the pressure of the water. And she was just peacefully protesting that people of color should be treated with respect and shouldn't have to fear for their lives just walking down the road. I mean, she wasn't armed. She wasn't an insurgent. She wasn't hurting anyone. And our right to voice our opinion is supposed to be a constitutional right in the United States, you know, as well as a lot of other places in the world. And that shouldn't have happened. You know,
Absolutely.
and that kind of thing was happening all over the place. And there's no reason, you know, my very best friend in the world's married to a man, a black man, and they live in a primarily white neighborhood, which is, you know, whatever, neither here nor there. And I would say 3 or 4 times in the last year, he got pulled over by police just for driving while black in his own neighborhood and had to show his driver's license. I'm just going home from work. He was doing nothing else. And they stopped him for no reason. Like,
Terrible.
you know, I think we need to realize that we're all different, but we're all more the same than we are different. And that every
Absolutely.
single one of us wants the same damn thing for ourselves, for our children, for our futures. We all want love. We all need to feel love. We want to give love. And we need shelter and to feel safe and have community and empathy. And that's it.
That's right.
That's it.
Well, that's what I'd like for the world, Marci.
You and me both, Virginia.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yikes. Well, this has been fabulous. I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. It was a good way to end my day. I hope this is a good way to begin your day for you.
Very energizing.
I do have one quick question, just for my own curiosity. How are you guys doing with COVID over there right now? It's like the middle of November. I know people in New Zealand are locked down still.
We in this, you know, Australia is a federation. And in the state where I live, we're not locked down at the moment, but we were locked down for 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
But we seem to have, as Australians, we do have a degree of compliance for the greater good. And I think that's the way most people have taken it. And
not in the US, but yeah, I envy Australia and New Zealand for that.
Well, you know, we've had quite a few American people who, you know, make comment in the media, and a lot of people have said, oh God, we need to go and rescue Australia. No thanks.
Yeah, definitely not.
We don't need rescuing, and we don't have the debts. So we're good here in New South Wales. We still do have some states that are locked down, but we're also up to nearly 80% double vaccinated.
Fabulous. Yeah,
so
the U.S. is not even really close at all. They're starting to call people who wear masks and who get vaccinated, like those who don't believe in that, like science is fiction somehow. They're calling them sheeples, like they're people who are sheep and just following what they're told without thinking for themselves, which is ridiculous.
Well, you know, none of these people, I mean, we all got the Sabine oral vaccine for polio.
Right. And meningitis and right. And diphtheria and mumps and all of that stuff.
Babies get triple vaccinated. I mean,
what is the big deal? Why is this politicized? I have no idea.
No, well, because from a natural health point of view and a homeopathic point of view, vaccines have an effect, and homeopaths, I know for a fact, don't like you to have a vaccine. They think it's dangerous. Well, you know what? Polio is an awful lot more dangerous than my having that in my system.
Absolutely.
And COVID is a lot more dangerous than having that in my system. Anyway, look, we're doing pretty well here. I mean, in the states south of us, Victoria, they still have a problem. It's just a question of time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go into a good lockdown and people comply, then you just have to wait for the wave to come down again.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now, but we're in a much better position now than we were 4 months ago because nearly everybody's vaccinated.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, the lockdown, the lockdowns have been very strict.
Yeah.
I mean, we had, for example, that you could drive in your car for 5 kilometres from your residence. And if you were found driving outside of that, you had to have a good reason. Mm-hmm. And if you didn't have a good reason, there's a fine.
Wow.
Yeah. And in Melbourne, a very orthodox Jewish family had an engagement. I'm talking yeshiva people,
Yeah.
And very, very firm, and, they had an engagement party and they had like 150 people there. And this was in the lockdown. Every adult in that room was charged a fine of $5,000.
Wow. That's an expensive party.
It was a very expensive party.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So people who've done funny things, when, borders have been closed and then somebody's gone against the border control, if they get caught, they'll get charged $5,000.
Wow. That's some serious business.
Yeah, it's been serious. It's a serious business.
And it's good because it'll save more lives and it'll keep people safer. Well,
that's the question. Do you want to curtail your freedoms for a few months and we're going to get out of this alive? Or do you want to flout all of the requests and we're going to stay sick for longer?
Exactly. Exactly. I agree. I think we're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Virginia. This was lovely. I'm very, very glad to have met you. Thank you.
Me too, Marci. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to talk with you.
So this will probably not run till January.
That's okay.
Trying to count where we're going, and since I do it all myself, I'm not 100% organized. I mean, I'm organized, but I haven't planned exactly how many we have. So it'll probably run in January. I will give you all the links and the graphic art and the video promos and all of that happy stuff. I will email to you when the episode's about to drop, and
I will email links to you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so they're like the bag lady, the top 10 tips of the bag lady. If they work through those top 10 tips for 6 months to a year, they'll be in a very different place.
Nice.
And then there's the Wealth Mindset eBook and workbook.
Oh, cool.
And that's a freebie. And there's the email challenge about the self-talk. So I'll put all these links in an email for you later today.
Excellent.
Now I have to run.
Okay. We talked a long time. I like this. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah, Marci, lovely to talk with you. Lovely.
You as well. Say goodnight to Gordon for me.
Okay. All right. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining me for this episode of Permission to Heal. I hope you found it moving and inspirational. Please remember, you don't need anyone else's permission to trust and follow your heart. You have the power within you. Subscribe to Permission to Heal so you don't miss any new episodes, and please share this with your friends.